our babies sleep really, really good.
Or this.
Make sure Timmy wears the blue shirt. If he does.
Or even this.
And for my birthday, which is next month, I'd really like some.
Do you have trouble listening or retaining information from your wife? You could be suffering from spousal selective listening, or SSL. With SSL, valuable input is intercepted or scrambled before it reaches critical learning center of the man brain. Virtually anything can trigger it, like sports, food, even shiny objects with buttons. Fortunately, there is help with Heritol. Containing a rare root with an exotic name, Heritol helps men focus and listen to valuable female input, even pick up on those subtle hints.
These are exactly the earrings I wanted. How did you know?
Thanks, Heritol. Now I can hear it all.
Heritol has not been tested or approved by any regulatory agency. Side effects with Heritol include minor to severe headaches and spontaneous combustion. Use caution when using Heritol and your mother's-in-law, as you may hear hurtful comments that would have previously been ignored. Heritol is an enhancement drug. Do not use around children or clusters of talkative old blue-haired women. If focused listening lasts longer than 4 hours, consult your doctor immediately before your wife assumes this is a new standard in your relationship. Men with wives who are nursing or pregnant should not take this product. Heritol, the preferred selection or solution for selective hearing.
morning, and thank you for joining us at Relationship Matters. You matter to us, and we want to make sure that your relationships matter to you and that you know what to do and the things to look for in your relationship, to see where you need to build, and also to cultivate relationships with not only your spouse but also your family. But tonight we're focusing on the spouse, and we're talking about whether you need to be needed or loved, because those are two separate things. Everybody wants to be needed at times, and everyone wants to be loved at times. And the really key thing in a relationship is making sure that your spouse feels both loved and needed. So we're going to talk about that tonight. And right now we're going to start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for allowing us to come into the homes of the people. Lord, we thank you for the word that you have given us. Lord, we thank you for relationships, because no one wants to be alone. No man is an island. We all need each other. And we thank you for giving us relationships. We thank you for the most important relationship, and that is the relationship with Jesus Christ. And we just pray that something will be said tonight, something will be heard by someone that will allow them to seek a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ, but also to seek a more meaningful relationship with their spouse and their family. So we, again, thank you for this opportunity. Please let the words from our mouth and the meditations of our heart be acceptable in thy sight, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And we just thank God for you being with us tonight. We know that each week we've been getting messages from everybody that says how much you enjoy Relationship Matters, and we just thank God for your presence. We thank God for all of you who are always giving us positive information, comments, and just basically saying, hey, this is something that we need and appreciate, and it is a blessing to be part of this ministry. And our prayer is that throughout this ministry, that lives are changed, and that people's lives are just brought brand new and afresh. Amen. 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 It's so good to see Lady J in the house tonight. She's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Listen, let me ask you a question. Is it more important to be loved, or is it more important to be needed? And one of the things that we see in relationships is that people may start out looking for love, but they desire, more importantly, to just be needed. And that becomes a problem, and that persists to be, people will stay in a marriage because they're needed, not because they're loved.
That's correct.
And they'll make sacrifices that they shouldn't have to make in that relationship because they desire to be loved, but they can't get it, so they'll satisfy themselves with just, he needs me, she needs me, versus they love me. I asked Lady J on the way over here, I said, what's more important, that we be needed, or that we be loved? And so there's some things that we want to talk about tonight that deals with neededness and love, and I just want us to be able to get into that tonight. Were you able to put together? Look at you. You are awesome. Awesome. And so, as always, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns, and you say, Pastor C, I don't know, Lady J, I need your advice, we are here. Just send us, whatever meeting you're watching, send us a comment or a question, and we'll be more than happy to answer that question for you. But tonight, let's go to the first slide, and let's talk about the difference between needed and love. Needed and love.
Well, each person in a relationship is going to have needs, and the challenge is for the spouse to recognize the needs of the other. You may not always be able to tell your spouse the things that you need. Sometimes spouses don't want to have to tell you what they need. Sometimes they want you to be that in tune with them that you can see what they need. But if there's a time that you really want that person to recognize your needs and you really want that person to just see what you need because they love you, but you see that they don't see, then that's the time that you want to actually let them know what you need. Because while, yes, it would be deeply romantic for that person to just look at you and know exactly what you need, you have to remember that that is a human, just like you're a human. And you don't want that person to, you don't want to feel anger at that person just because they don't understand what you need. So you do need to communicate. You need to communicate your needs. But by the same token, like I said, you should always try to be that person for your spouse that can figure out what they need. It's really a two-way street, and it's really something that you just have to, it's like a scale, and you have to do a little give and take to find that right balance. So always be able to recognize what your spouse needs, but at the same time, if your needs aren't being met, don't just expect your spouse to have a crystal ball somewhere where they can just figure it out. If you find that they haven't figured it out, then it's time to communicate and let them know.
I agree. I think, I think people have identity crisis in marriages, and what they do is they don't know who they are. They say, I do, but I don't know who I become after I do.
Right.
And they have an identity when they are dating. I'm the boyfriend, I'm the girlfriend, I'm the fiance. I know my role, but now I'm married, and now my role changes. Now you intermix kids, my role changes. You intermix jobs, my role changes. And then you go through challenges in the relationship, and I think what happens really is a lot of times that the relationship changes and shifts, and your roles and your identity shifts. And so people have needs based on their identity.
Right.
If I am the husband, I've got needs. If you're the wife, you have needs. But then if you are the caregiver, you got needs. If you are the protector, you got needs. If you are the breadwinner, or wherever role you play, each role has needs in order for you to perfect what you're doing in that role.
That is correct. And it's up to both people to try to figure out, because when you're in a relationship as a boyfriend and girlfriend, many times you've had boyfriends before, you've had girlfriends before, so this isn't your first time being the boyfriend or the girlfriend. But when you're married, it's your first time being the wife.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
There was somebody before me.
Yeah, but there will never be another like you, and there will
Oh,
never be
say it,
any
girl.
after you. But you don't have a point of reference for being the wife, because you've never been the wife before.
Right.
So that's why you have to go to the Bible and study your word on what it means to be the wife. Talk to godly women to get advice on what it means to be a wife, but then also talk to your spouse
That's it.
to find out what they want from a wife, because the godly woman can't tell you what your spouse wants or needs. So you got to study. And when you study, I'm in school right now, and when we write papers, they want 3 or 4 references, because they don't want you to just tell this one thing that you have heard. They want you to go to several different sources so that they know that you have studied the information. So basically, you're studying your relationship. Talk to your spouse. Go to the Bible. Get godly counsel. Use all of those things to study to be the right person that your spouse needs.
Absolutely. I think that is vital and important in the whole process. Now, let me go to the next slide, because we really are hammering on this one really well. And let's go to the next slide. I want to kind of emphasize on that. In your relationships, determine if you are a giver or a taker in the relationship.
And that's really a trick, because if you are either, then you're not doing it right. Because there should be sometimes when you're a giver, and there should be sometimes when you're a taker. So if you look at that and say, ooh, I'm a giver, no, you didn't get it right. Or if you look at that and say, ooh, I'm a taker, no, you didn't get it right. There's give and take, ebb and flow, yin and yang.
No. No. Know your role, Gibraltar. I honestly believe that roles shifts, and you should be flexible enough in your relationship where you should be able to shift as the giver or the taker. And being the giver is not a sign of weakness. Being the one that takes is not a sign of abnormal strength. Because give means submitting to offer. So you're looking at two different parts of it. One means submitting, meaning I'm subjecting myself to, but then also when you look at it from the other standpoint, you got to say that not only am I subjecting myself to, but as a giver, I'm sacrificing what I have. And what I think happens in relationships is people forget how to be a giver. They forget the significance in giving.
Right.
Because, see, we all cannot be right. We all cannot be wrong. We have to be able to be flexible enough to see both opportunities. Now, as far as the taker is concerned, I believe we all, if you're playing, if Janita, Lady J is playing giver, then I'm the taker. If I'm the giver, then she's the taker. And so when we switch roles, we got to be flexible enough in the relationship to be able to transfer roles, transfer roles, transfer responsibilities, transfer everything, so that when we do, it works. Now, what happens is if both of y'all are taking and nobody's giving, then conflict occurs because two people are trying to do the same thing at the same time. If both of you are giving, then watch this, neglect occurs because somebody's going to feel like I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving, and nobody's going to feel as if they're doing their part. That's because both people are playing dual roles at the wrong time or at the same time.
Right. It's kind of like baseball. Have you ever seen when two outfielders are going for the ball and neither one wants to give up and say, okay, you got it. And then they end up colliding, and the whole team takes a loss because those two couldn't decide, well, hey, I'm going to be flexible this time. I'm not going to catch. I'm going to, stand back and let this person do it. And it's the same way in marriage. You have to be able to communicate to each other, okay, no, I'm going to be the giver this time. Oh, okay, fine, I'll be the taker. You have to have that ebb and flow. You have to have that communication between the two so that you don't do dual roles at the same time.
Absolutely. I think, and that's part of the area of responsibility in there. Let's go to the next one, and let's take a look at the next screen there. Here's a definition, and I like to use this for givers. Givers is when you are a self-proclaimed giver. It means you're raised, and this is a characteristic trait, you're raised in a home where vital and important emotional needs were not acknowledged or adequately responded to, and you have attempted to compensate for this deficit by being what I like to use as a caregiver. Now, this is not a caregiver, and let me kind of put some definition and clarity to this. A caregiver is someone that gives so that they can get a response from a person saying that I care. When kids are growing up, and this happened even in our household, our kids looked for our approval, and they'll say, hey, Daddy, look what I can do. And they look for your approval and your excitement. And so if you didn't respond adequately, they did even more.
Right.
If you didn't respond to that, they did even more. And then sometimes they will respond or want you to respond, and you will respond in the way that they weren't expecting you to respond. And then what happened is you got hurt emotionally because you didn't get the right response. Yeah. And I see a great example. Somebody's trying to impress you, and they're trying to impress you and impress you and impress you, and the more that they try to impress you, the less impressed you become, until they get to the point to where they're angry because their efforts didn't get the expected result. In relationships, what happens a lot is that you will try and do something and you don't get the response. Well, a lady will put on her makeup, do her hair, get her nails done, look all purdy. And then the husband go, where you going? Don't you see I'm all dressed up? Yeah. Where you going, grocery store?
Right.
And they look at you with that, give me that look you always give me. You know, that pretty look when you're trying to get my attention. There you go. That's it. That's it. Cameraman, can you get close up on that look when she does that look? Get a close up on that look and see. And she gonna do that look one more time. Do that look one more time. That got my attention. Okay. So let me tell you what happens when she does that look. When she does that look, she expects a positive response from me. If I don't respond to her, gentlemen, I'm hoping y'all hear me on this. If I don't respond to her, what happens simply is this. She goes, I did all of this, and I didn't get a response that I anticipated from you.
Right.
And so now she's angry because not because you done something real, well, you actually have. You did not respond in the appropriate manner. And so this is sometimes people feel I'm not loved because when I show love, I'm not responded to in the way I anticipate you to respond when I demonstrate my love. And so they go, well, you don't love me. Then that goes from you don't love me to you don't need me, or you don't care about me, or you don't think about me. Or I got another great one. If I don't call Lady J at least once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, no, I'm just messing. 7 times a day, why you ain't calling me? Why was your day so busy? They are looking for that response. When she looks at the phone and she sees hearts that I've sent her, she likes that. She says, okay, all is well. When I call her and say I love you for no reason at all, just to say I love you, all is well. When all these things take place, then she knows all is well in the world, and that's what she wants. She wants to know that all is well. If all is well in my world, then guess what?
All is well in my world.
Amen.
And then, ladies, if you don't get that response, don't be quick to say you don't love me or you didn't notice me, because all of those are what? Accusations.
Mm-hmm.
And what do accusations start? Arguments. So find a way to say, hey, I put all this makeup on. I was trying to look pretty for you.
Oh.
My feelings were hurt when you didn't say anything. That way, it doesn't make it seem like, well, you did this, or you don't do this, or you. So, like I said, it's all in the presentation. Pastor told us that time about the episode of Cosby.
That's right.
And the steak on the trash can lid. You always have to consider your presentation. So, yes, when you don't get your expected response,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you know how, because remember I said every response it initiates a new action. So watch the way you respond and watch the way you react, because your reaction is a response.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me give single ladies, if you're watching, because Relationship Matters is not just for married couples. It is for people who are looking to get married. Listen, I'm going to give you this one for free. If your presentation gets a response that you don't desire, check what you're presenting.
Right.
If you present yourself in a way and they respond in that way, their response was based off what was presented. If you present yourself as a woman, we get some crowd applause from that. If you present yourself as a woman, then he's going to step to you as a woman. Exactly. But if you present yourself as something less, then don't get mad when they come to you and speak to you in that way.
Exactly. Exactly.
High five, Pastor C. You go ahead.
So true, so true.
Take us to the next one.
We'll go to the next one. Beware of the relationship clone conspiracy, where you are being compared to others or expected to act like other previous relationships. And not just previous relationships, but other couples. You know, I could tell Pastor, well, you know, your dad always gets your mom cards from Nordstrom so she can go shopping. But then what if he turns around and says, you know, my mama cooks every night? Well, then what do I do? So beware of comparing yourself to other people, because you never know what that person is doing to garner whatever gifts they're getting in the relationship, and it may not be something that you want to do. So beware of relationship clone conspiracy. You're not anybody else. Lady J, this is Pastor C. Pastor C and Lady J are not John and Mary Cunningham. We're not Beyonce and Jay-Z. We're not Lester and Dorothy Cesar. We are
Pam and Pastor Steve Wiley.
Yeah, we are Pastor C and Lady J. So we have to be who we are. We can't clone ourselves, and we can't try and be someone else or try to have a relationship like someone else. That's where that the information or the communication comes into play. You have to be who you are with each other and develop your own relationship so that you'll be successful. Don't try and clone yourself after anybody else. Do you?
That's the challenge. That's the challenge, because what people would, and here's the worst thing that they can do. Here's the worst thing they can do. Well, this person and that person, they went out for dinner.
Right.
Why we don't go out for dinner? Because we got a great meal right here.
Right.
You know, or they went on a cruise. How come you can't take me on a cruise? My ex-boyfriend took me on a cruise, but you ain't with him no more. You know, and those are the things that we try to clone our previous relationships. Matter of fact, you know, you can't. There's a danger in that, because you not only will you clone you want to clone their successes, but if you're going to clone it, you got to also clone their failures.
Exactly.
Whoo. Woo. That's a sermon right there. Amen. I like that. Amen. Amen. Go right ahead, AVT.
How do you handle a non-reciprocating mate who is not giving, caring, or affectionate? How do you overcome their defenses? That's a good question. If a person is not giving or caring or affectionate, first of all, you don't want to tell that person you are not giving, caring, or affectionate, because that, again, is an accusation, which is going to start an argument. However, what you can do is explain to that person, again, communication. If there is a situation where you don't think your love was reciprocated, then explain to the person how you felt about something. You don't say, well, when I did such and such, you didn't do this. You can say, I felt pretty hurt when this didn't happen, or I felt pretty hurt when this happened. So find a way to let that person know that you're feeling unloved, that you're feeling that you're the one that's giving and they're not, but don't do it by making the accusation. Do it by expressing your feelings. Always communicate feelings. If you communicate feelings, you will never go wrong.
I agree, but I want to add something in there.
Sure.
I also want to say that I believe you can say that they're not caring, giving, or affectionate. It's how you approach this. Let me give you an example. If a person was that way, I would not come to them and say directly, you are not caring, giving, or affectionate.
Right.
I would approach them and say, I have needs
Right.
that I feel may garner special attention. And nobody else can give me that special attention but you. And I like when you give me that special attention, and so I'm spoiled. Because when you look at me that way, I get excited. And so when you don't look at me that way, I'm thinking something's wrong. And you'll tell me nothing's wrong, but something's not right when you're not looking at me that way. And so to help me not misinterpret you, just don't stop looking at me that way. And so I can get, and so the message I'm sending comes out, well, I need to make him feel this way so he doesn't feel that way. So what I've basically done is says, well, you're not giving, caring, or affectionate, but then now I've opened the invitation for them to be affectionate through the fact that I'm stating my needs. And if you don't define your needs in a relationship, then what happens is the person who's supposed to love you may not know your needs and overlook your needs, and then you'll go, oh, I'm not needed. My needs are not being met.
Right, like we were talking about in the beginning. You have to communicate. You've got to communicate your needs.
Absolutely.
While it would be absolutely beautiful, fairy tale, true to have someone that knows everything you need. They say God bless you before you sneeze because you said, but that's not real world. You have to communicate those needs.
Absolutely. Take us to the next one, Brother Jerry.
A lack of self.
Yep, a lack of self. Knowing who you are in a relationship. A lack of self, we were reading that at the same time, keeps you trying to fill the hole in your soul at any cost with any unsuitable partners who highlight core insecurities you've retained throughout your life. When you have a lack of self, when you feel as if you are, and I want people to see me when I say this, if you feel that you are not needed or not loved, that creates what I like to say a lack of self. And then you don't see your value in the relationship. And watch, that creates a void or a hole. And what people try to do, and I'm going to tell you this, and hear me out. This is how infidelity comes into relationships. This is one door, one avenue. That hole is tried to be filled with something that's not supposed to be there. It's a round hole, and you try to put a square peg into it. It doesn't work. And so you don't get fulfillment. What you do is you get attempt. I'm trying to fill a void, but it's not filling the void. And then what happens a lot of times is people go into their mental capacity and look at previous relationships, or they look at previous situations, and they try to fill that void, and that void cannot be filled. what you have to do to fill the hole is replace it with what left. So go to the mate and say, hey, listen, I'm missing this. This is something I'm missing out of the relationship. I used to have it, but now I don't. What happened? How do we fix this? Because the boy is hurting me. Go on, ladies.
And the most dangerous thing you can do is share that void on Facebook.
Woo! Drop the bomb.
Because believe me, the enemy is reading Facebook daily, and they are looking for that little space that they can try to crawl into. They know they don't fit, but they're going to try it anyway. So I've seen Facebook statuses before, or this is another night I'm sitting here alone, or I wonder where he is right now. And believe you me, the person who calls you or inboxes you or starts to try and buddy-buddy with you, they literally do not mean you any good. They just know, ooh, there's a hole.
Trying to fill it.
They have a hole. Let me go and try and fill that hole right quick.
You know what? Can I tell you another secret? Dogs dig holes to bury bones.
Yes.
I'm telling you, that went over a whole bunch of folks' head. Okay? Dogs dig holes to bury bones. And watch this. They know exactly where to dig the hole. They know exactly where they dug the hole and where they left the bone. And so what happens is this, fellas, can I help you out? If you're watching tonight and this is helping you out, I want you to respond. Listen, be careful about how you reveal that you have a void or a hole in your life, because a dog ain't got to dig a hole to put the bone in. They'll look for a hole, an empty space to place their bone in and try to cover it up.
Yep.
Infidelity.
Exactly. Exactly. And that actually is bird syndrome. The wounded bird syndrome is an intricate relationship problem. It involves our subconscious need to select and remain with someone who's impaired in some manner and isn't likely to leave us for someone better. It's driven by our deep sense of inadequacy and accompanying wish to avert abandonment. So you're a wounded bird and you think that the other bird is not going to leave the nest.
Say it.
So you just stay with that bird because, you know, you've heard that a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. That is not what that thing means. You don't want to just have any bird to make you feel like you have a nest.
Come on.
Hanging on to another wounded bird that feels inadequate. And all you do is just have wounds together. And I don't know about you, but when you have a wound, after so long, that wound begins to stink. And if you've got two wounded
Say
birds
it, Lady J.
in the nest, pretty soon that nest is going to stink.
It's going to stink.
And both birds will eventually want to get away from that stink, from that stench, from that smell. So you don't need to be a wounded bird, and you don't need to be with a wounded bird. What you need to do is help each other to heal.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to throw this out there. Listen, and Lady J was right on time with this. There's a lot of you who are with wounded birds. And let me tell you, he needs me. I saw the other day, I was watching some videos. It was an old video of Richard Pryor and Maya Angelou. Yeah, Richard Pryor and Maya Angelou.
Now that's an odd combination.
Well, for a season, the Richard Pryor show. And in the scene, he was at a bar, and he's getting drunk. And then he goes home, falls in the doorway, walks in the living room and falls down on the couch. And there's his wife, Maya Angelou, who is sitting on the couch, and she's angry at first, and she displays her anger, and she's very critical of him, and then it shifts. I hate you, but I need you. and I love you. I don't mind all your flaws, and I don't mind all the fact that you're hurting my family and that you're not paying the bills because on Friday you take the check and you spend the check at the liquor store or nowadays at the strip club or hanging with the fellas or at the casino, and then you come home with nothing, and then when you come home with nothing, she's there expecting, waiting you to come, and you don't have nothing to give her, and what happens is she goes through these emotional things because she's taking care of a wounded bird. See, you thought the woman was the wounded bird. Actually, it's the man and his insufficiency and his inability to be able to sustain and restrain himself from going out and doing those things. Or it could be the opposite, where it's the lady who's unable to restrain and constrain herself from doing those things. And what happens is you are in what people say an imbalanced relationship, but what it is you're trying to care for a wounded bird because you said, I'm the only one that can heal her.
Right.
And you have no healing powers. I'm the only one that can care for the bird, and you have no ability to show the right amount of care with medicines and trying to mend that bird so that it gets stronger again. And instead of getting stronger, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And there are times where you don't even know if the bird is going to come home to the nest that night. You don't even know if the bird is going to return to you. You don't know if the bird is wounded but yet going to another nest with other wounded birds and trying to nest in another nest. And what happens is you don't understand why you stay in that relationship. It's because you feel you're the only one that can help that person, and you move from being in the position of love to the position of being needed. He needs me. He may not love me. He may not treat me fairly. And watch this, you'll stay in it because you feel like if you leave, you fail him and he will fail. Well, the failure has already taken place.
Yeah, exactly.
Woo! Jesus. Let me stop. No, the failure has already taken place. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to play God.
Right.
When you should have turned that situation over to God. Can we help somebody tonight? What you're trying to do is be just like God. God, and watch this, you're trying to be faithful to a fool.
Give me some high five.
Ooh, faithful to a fool. Watch this, that doesn't understand what he has. And until he submits himself to God, or she submits herself to God, then the relationship is always going to be a person trying to care for a wounded bird. That's like a blind doctor trying to do surgery on a patient that ain't even on the bed. Jesus. Pastor, you own it tonight. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because see, too many of you are wounded in wounded bird syndrome relationships. You are trying to help people that can't even help themselves. It's like trying to find a rock and make that rock talk.
It's like beating a dead horse.
Beating a dead horse.
You can beat that horse till the cows come home, but if it's dead, it's dead.
It is dead. Oh, one person in your relationship, and it's not them.
It's you.
It's you. You can only control one. And when you're unable to control that other, then turn that other person to the one that can control.
Exactly.
Whew. Amen?
The only
Amen.
one that has control of both birds is God.
Is God.
So you have to submit.
Jesus.
And you have to get that person to submit to God.
That's right. And that makes so much sense. That is so much sense. I want to go, but let me say this one more thing. Here's another thing about a wounded bird. Watch this. A wounded bird doesn't know that it's wounded. See, fellas, let me help y'all out. You're a wounded bird if you look for satisfaction. Instead of going home to your wife, you go to the strip club. You're a wounded bird. because you're wounded because, watch this, there is a hole and a void in you that hasn't been fulfilled, and you're looking for a fantasy to fill the hole. When you have your mate at home and you need to go to your mate and say, baby, I've got a hole inside of me. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how I got it, but the only person that can help me fix this is you.
Exactly, exactly.
Not Black Diamond. Sapphire, not Cavassier, E&J, not that weed. It doesn't fill the hole because an emotional hole cannot be met with a physical fulfillment. Fulfillment, meaning purposely filled. Fulfillment. That's really what fulfillment means. Purposely completed. Purposely completed. And your mate is the person that is purpose for your completement. That's why the two shall become
one.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll feel like you are filling that hole, but sometimes you feel a square hole, or you feel a square void with ice. And while it's ice, it seems like it's filled.
You better go, Lady J.
But once it gets hot, you realize exactly what you have, and that's nothing. Because
Nothing.
it melts away.
It melts away, and then the water evaporates.
Exactly.
Okay, we better go forward.
Okay, I like this next one. A spouse needs to feel valued by his or her mate. They need to see welcome on their spouse's face when they enter a room and feel like they really matter and that they are adored. When I come in a room and Pastor has that look on his face like, oh, there's my wife, that makes me feel good. When my husband walks in the room and I have that smile on my face and I tilt my head just the right way, that makes him feel valued.
Do it again.
When your spouse comes in and let's say they've had a hard day at work and the only thing on their mind was, ooh, I'm so glad I'm getting out of here. I cannot wait to see my baby. And when they come home, you got a grumpy look. It's almost 6 o'clock. What took you so long to get here? No. When your spouse comes home, today, as a matter of fact, I had a trying day at work. And when I walked out of the building, the first thing I saw was my husband's smile. And that just turned everything around. Always have that smile for your mate when you see them, because you don't know what kind of day they've been through. They don't know what kind of day you've been through. And when you show up and you smile, that says, hey, you know what? He couldn't wait to get to me. Or she couldn't wait till she got home. So give your mate that welcome. Don't be grumpy. Be glad that they're there, because they may not have been there when you got there. So be happy and be appreciative that that person is there for you. And make sure that they feel valued and loved.
That is so important. That is so important. Let me give you a couple things. We're going to give you 3 things that's really going to help you shift from feeling that feeling of needed to loved, and how to make that proper shift. First thing you need to know how to do is open up your heart. Open up your heart. You need to initiate meaningful conversations all the time. Initiate meaningful conversation. And then give the gift of your presence. There's no more important gift than you can do by giving the gift of your presence. Being there says so much. It not only does that work for your mate, but it also works for your kids. And they want you there. They want you there. We were supposed to start this second season of Relationship Matters a few weeks ago, but our son had a game.
Right.
And did they win? They didn't win. But what made the difference? We were there.
Exactly.
Our presence showed our heart. third thing is open up your love valve. Now, this is important because everybody has a love valve. Those out there in the audience say love valve. Those on YouTube, any of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, say love valve. You need to learn how to turn it on. Turn it on. Marvin Gaye made a song say, "Let's get it on." He really should have remixed it and said, "Turn on." Turn on. The love valve. Turn it up. Turn up your love valve. That means turn physically and let your love overflow. Let it overflow. And that's so vital because in so many relationships, people don't allow, they give limited love and expect major reward. No. Give major love freely, period. That's how you open up your love valve.
And then you've got to open your mind. You got to change your beliefs about love. Consider that love changes and evolves in the change you desire, and give love when you are tempted to judge. In other words, change how you feel about love. Understand that you and your mate are not going to be the same as you were, especially if you met when you were really young. Pastor and I were very young when we got married. And if I still acted like that now, first of all, I'd be a major disgrace. Second of all, that would mean I would be very immature. So just know that your love is going to change. It's going to mature. There are certain things that you did when you were younger that you won't be able to do when you get older. You'll be stiff and sore. No, just kidding. No.
Well, that's the end of the breakfast.
Know that there are you're going to have different things that you care about, different things that you need. So know that your love is going to evolve and change with time, and you're not always going to be that person you were, but don't be tempted to judge people. You know, if you've changed differently from your spouse, then let that person catch up, or you catch up with your spouse.
Yeah.
Don't just say, "Oh, I can't believe you did this," or "I can't believe she." No. Don't judge. Just love. Say, "You know what? They didn't do this, but you know what? He's so cute."
I'm gonna throw something in there on you on that. Did you finish?
Yeah.
You did the
I was
third
done.
one?
Yeah,
The
give
judge.
love. Yeah, we're just on the
Okay.
judge.
Fellas, listen closely tonight. You change. My six-pack is more like a caravan of beer trucks now.
But I like caravan.
That's right. That's right. And I've changed. The other day I noticed I had gray hair. I noticed I'm changing. And I was like, okay, does she love me? With all these changes? Yeah. Because you know what? The one thing that remains constant is love.
Exactly.
Not the change. So when I look at my wife, nothing's changed on her. She's still super fine, sexy, beautiful. Now me, like I said,
You still look good.
I know, but expect change, but
Right.
appreciate change.
Change. Exactly. Exactly.
Love the change and tell them that you love them while they're changing. Learn how to love the change, because what happens is this: a lot of divorces end because people physically stop loving each other, and they start judging and looking at each other. And the worst thing you can say, "Oh, you used to look like this, but now you look like that." You know, and that's judging. Don't do that. Don't do that. I
love
could
the
go deeper on
change.
that. And then finally is, you want to say this with me?
Yeah.
Open your eyes.
value your spouse daily, and don't just value them inside. Let them know that you value them. Tell them. They cannot read your mind. You have to tell your spouse that you value them.
Recognize the love you are not giving. This is so critical. This is so critical because what happens is a lot of times we will recognize what we're not receiving,
Right.
but we won't recognize what we're not giving. And see, you remember we talk about give, take. Okay, so you got to understand that you play both roles and everything at the same time. I've got to be aware if I'm not saying I love you enough. I got to be aware. Not the fact that I don't love her, but if I just don't say it enough, if I don't recognize who she is, if I don't acknowledge her beauty, if I don't say those things, what happens is I expect her to love me and be loving to me, but I don't say anything to her. That's not right.
That's not
And
fair.
I know people out there now who will be in relationships and that person would say, I ain't gonna never tell that person I love them. That's wrong. That's wrong. That is wrong. Listen, if you love a person, tell them. If you love a person, show it. Who had that song? Brownstone?
If you love me, say it.
Say it.
Right.
Do it, and all that other stuff. Love that song. But can I tell you what's so important? You expect people to show you love, then you got to be loving.
Yes.
And be willing to show equal love. Reciprocate. The love that they're showing to you, show it back. Fellas, don't be afraid to say I love you. Listen, not only do I say I love you to my wife, I say I love you to my sons. I say I love you to my daughter. Listen, people who know me, if I love you, I ain't got a problem telling you. I'm going to tell you if I love you. Because people sometimes it's the thing that makes the difference in people's lives. I know it. Go back. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, we're just about done with our time here, but look at that person's needs and intentions as well as your own. So look at your spouse to see what they need. Try to anticipate their needs. Try to say God bless you before they actually sneeze.
God bless you.
But do what you can to anticipate your patient. Lord, help me. I'm not at work. To anticipate your spouse's needs.
Dr. J, calling Dr. J.
Do what you can to anticipate your spouse's needs so that they will know that you love them as much as they love you. I was waiting on that.
Listen.
Okay, so let's end in prayer.
Yeah, we're going to end in prayer, but I just want to say that we're praying for every couple. Thank you for watching tonight. Another episode of Relationship Matters. We hope that this matters in helping your relationship grow and develop because it's all about building better relationships. And as we are getting towards the end, next week we need for you to be here. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some special guests that are going to be with us, and we're going to be interviewing them and having discussions with them and having others join in the conversation. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, I'm looking for individuals out there that are willing to be part of the conversation, whether you're in Oklahoma or out of Oklahoma. We got the technology to interview you right where you are. Just inbox me and I'll give you the subject title and we'll do some live counseling right here on Relationship Matters. We love you. Our prayer is